Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is they believe you tell it like it is. But time and time again in this campaign, you have actually told the voters one thing only to reverse yourself within weeks or even sometimes days. We've teed up just 3 examples in a videotape similar to those we used with Senator Rubio and Senator Cruz in the last debate. The first is on whether the war in Afghanistan was a mistake. Watch.
What about in Afghanistan? Do you believe that American boots should stay on the ground in Afghanistan to stabilize the situation?
We made a terrible mistake getting involved there in the first place. That thing will collapse about 2 seconds after they leave, just as I said that Iraq was going to collapse after we leave.
About Afghanistan, you said we made a terrible mistake getting involved there in the first place.
We made a mistake going into Iraq. I've never said we made a mistake going into Afghanistan.
Our question was about Afghanistan. That day on October 6th, it was about Afghanistan.
Okay, wouldn't matter. I never said it.
Next, on whether we should accept
the Syrian... Should I respond to that first?
2 more, and then you'll have the floor. Next, on whether we should accept the Syrian refugees.
A long time.
On whether we should accept the Syrian refugees.
Do you object to migrants who are getting out of the Middle East and North Africa? Do you object to them coming to the USA?
I hate the concept of it, but on a humanitarian basis, with what's happening, you have to. It's living in hell in Syria. There's no question about it. They're living in hell.
Are you saying absolutely people from Syria, the Middle East, should we allow any of them into this country?
Look, from a humanitarian standpoint, I'd love to help, but we have our own problems. We have so many problems that we have to solve.
Most recently, on whether President George W. Bush lied to get us into the Iraq War.
They lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none.
I don't know if he lied or not. He could have lied. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I guess you'd have to ask him.
And there are many other examples. So how is any of this telling it like it is?
Well, on Afghanistan, I did mean Iraq. I think you have to stay in Afghanistan for a while because of the fact that you're right next to Pakistan, which has nuclear weapons, and we have to protect that. Nuclear weapons change the game. And I was always against going into Iraq. In fact, believe me, I was always against it. There were some cases where I sort of, in one interview with a great friend of mine, and yours, Howard Stern, said that I said very meekly, long before we went in, I said very meekly, well, maybe, I don't know. By the time it got to that point, I was always against Iraq. But Afghanistan, I felt, and in that one, if you notice, I corrected it the second day. Okay? Second question?
There are several examples, Mr. Trump. We went through the Afghanistan being a mistake. Right. Within 1 day, you reversed yourself on Syrian refugees.
Let me explain that. You're right. Let me explain. First time the question had been put to me, it was very early on. The migration had just started, and I had heard that the number was a very, very small number. By the second day, 2 or 3 days later, I heard the number was going to be thousands and thousands of people. You know, when they originally heard about it, they were talking about bringing very, very small numbers in. And I said, begrudgingly, well, I guess maybe that's okay. It was not like, let's bring them in. Because I think we should build a safe zone. We should really, what we should be doing is building safe zones so they can stay in their own country and not go all over. And at least this way, we're not going to have the problem. That's what we have to do. But just to say, because I fully understand what you're asking, when I first heard the question, first time the question was ever asked to me, first time I really had known about the question, the migration had just started, I was very much like, okay. By the time I went back and studied it, and they were talking about bringing thousands and thousands, I changed my tune. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But the point I'm going for is you change your tune on so many things, and that has some people saying, what is his core?
Megyn, I have a very strong core. I have a very strong core. But I've never seen a successful person who wasn't flexible, who didn't have a certain degree of flexibility. You have to have a certain degree of flexibility. You can't, for instance, let's say on the second question, you can't say it's okay, and then you find out it's not okay, and you don't want to do anything. You have to be flexible because you learn. I mean, before I knew, the question was asked by Bill, and the next day or the couple of days later, the question was asked by I was asked by a number of people, actually. I was asked by Sean, but I was asked by a number of people. But by that time, the number had increased significantly.
Sean was the next day after Bill.
The next day. But I had learned. I mean, nobody had ever asked me the question. This was brand new. And I really mean it. You have to show a degree of flexibility. If you're going to be one way and you think it's wrong, does that mean the rest of your life you have to go in the wrong direction because you don't want to change?